Welcome to the Path to Truth, Goodness, and Beauty channel. This is a video channel that brings spirituality to everyone. In this episode, we will provide you with more knowledge on evidence of reincarnation around the world. Please join us as we dive in. Do you believe we might have lived previous lives? Have you ever wondered what you might have experienced before entering this current life? There are countless stories around the world about reincarnation, from children who recall their past lives to famous figures who have seemingly lived multiple lives. And today we'll explore some spine-chilling reincarnation stories that will make you reconsider this life. Let's begin with a story I believe many of you will find both strange and hard to believe. This is the story of a boy named James Leininger. James Leininger, born in Louisiana, USA, seemed like an ordinary boy until he began to have terrifying nightmares at just 2 years old. He would scream that his plane was shot down and that he was falling into the sea. Initially, James's parents thought these were just typical childhood nightmares. However, the dreams didn't stop. They grew increasingly detailed and more frightening. James began telling his parents that he had been a pilot in World War II. He clearly remembered that his plane had been shot down by the Japanese and that he died in battle. At first, this seemed far-fetched. How could a 2-year-old know about war, planes, or battles from decades ago? But the story didn't end there. James continued to say he flew from an aircraft carrier named Natoma Bay and had a fellow soldier named Jack Larson. At this point, his parents couldn't ignore it anymore. They started searching for information and discovered that there had indeed been an aircraft carrier named USS Natoma Bay in World War II. They also found the name of a pilot, James Houston, who was shot down by the Japanese near Iwo Jima. And his comrade? Yes, his name was Jack Larson. This revelation left James's parents in complete shock. How could a 2-year-old boy know such specific details when no one in the family had ever mentioned war or history to him? Things became even more remarkable when James began describing the exact type of plane James Houston had piloted, a Corsair. He even pointed out design flaws that only someone with first-hand experience of flying the plane would know. James Leininger's story isn't an isolated incident. His case has been documented and studied by numerous scientists, and it remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for reincarnation to this day. Now, let's move on to another famous story from India, the story of a young girl named Shanti Devi. Born in 1926 in Delhi, Shanti began recounting memories of her past life at just 4 years old. She claimed to have lived in Mathura, a city about 150 kilometers from Delhi, and said her husband's name was Kedarnath. Welcome to the Path to Truth, Goodness, and Beauty channel. This is a video channel that brings spirituality to everyone. In this episode, we will provide you with more knowledge on evidence of reincarnation around the world. Please join us as we dive in. Do you believe we might have lived previous lives? Have you ever wondered what you might have experienced before entering this current life? There are countless stories around the world about reincarnation, from children who recall their past lives to famous figures who have seemingly lived multiple lives. And today, we'll explore some spine-chilling reincarnation stories that will make you reconsider this life. Let's begin with a story I believe many of you will find both strange and hard to believe. This is the story of a boy named James Leininger. James Leininger, born in Louisiana, USA, seemed like an ordinary boy until he began to have terrifying nightmares at just 2 years old. He would scream that his plane was shot down and that he was falling into the sea. Initially, James's parents thought these were just typical childhood nightmares. However, the dreams didn't stop. They grew increasingly detailed and more frightening. James began telling his parents that he had been a pilot in World War II. He clearly remembered that his plane had been shot down by the Japanese and that he died in battle. At first, this seemed far-fetched. How could a 2-year-old know about war, planes, or battles from decades ago? But the story didn't end there. James continued to say he flew from an aircraft carrier named Natoma Bay and had a fellow soldier named Jack Larson. At this point, his parents couldn't ignore it anymore. They started searching for information and discovered that there had indeed been an aircraft carrier named USS Natoma Bay in Wwii. They also found the name of a pilot, James Houston, who was shot down by the Japanese near Iwo Jima. And his comrade? Yes, his name was Jack Larson. This revelation left James's parents in complete shock. How could a 2-year-old boy know such specific details when no one in the family had ever mentioned war or history to him? Things became even more remarkable when James began describing the exact type of plane James Houston had piloted, a Corsair. He even pointed out design flaws that only someone with first-hand experience of flying the plane would know. James Leininger's story isn't an isolated incident. His case has been documented and studied by numerous scientists, and it remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for reincarnation to this day. Now, let's move on to another famous story from India, the story of a young girl named Shanti Devi. Born in 1926 in Delhi, Shanti began recounting memories of her past life at just 4 years old. She claimed to have lived in Mathura, a city about 150 kilometers from Delhi, and said her husband's name was Kedarnath. At first, Shanti's family dismissed her words as childhood imagination. But as she continued to describe details about the house, her husband, and even her death during childbirth, her family became increasingly concerned. Shanti claimed that in her past life she had died giving birth to her first child, and her husband, Kedarnath, was still living with his family in Mathura. Driven by curiosity, Shanti's family decided to investigate. They traveled to Mathura and inquired about a man named Kedarnath. To their amazement, every detail Shanti had described was true. Kedarnath was indeed a real person, and his wife had passed away in childbirth, exactly as Shanti had said. The story didn't end there. When Kedarnath visited Shanti in Delhi, she immediately recognized him, calling him by name without any introduction. Shanti also accurately described details of her previous home that she had never visited, from the layout of the house to the family's routines. Shanti Devi's case drew national attention in India, eventually catching the interest of Mahatma Gandhi, who organized an official investigation. The inquiry confirmed that everything Shanti said was accurate. This story quickly became one of the most well-known cases of reincarnation and remains one of the most thoroughly researched. Now, we turn to a similarly strange case from Sweden, the story of Barbro Karlin. Born in the 1950s, Barbro had believed from a very young age that she was the reincarnation of Anne Frank, the famous Jewish girl who chronicled her life during the Holocaust. Barbro said she had clear memories of Anne Frank's life, even though she had never read Anne's diary or learned about her history. She would often tell her parents that her real name wasn't Barbro but Anne. Her mind was filled with dreams and images of Anne Frank's life, creating a feeling of living in a parallel world. As she grew up, Barbro and her family visited Amsterdam, where Anne Frank's house is located. Upon entering, Barbro immediately recognized everything, despite never having been there before. She identified each room, hallway, and even pointed out specific details of the house that only someone who had lived there would know. This story caught the attention of Anne Frank's family. When they met Barbro, they were convinced by her knowledge of Anne's life that no one had shared with her, leading them to believe that Barbro might indeed be Anne Frank's reincarnation. Finally, we can't overlook one of the most famous cases of reincarnation in Tibetan Buddhism, the story of the Dalai Lama. In Tibetan Buddhism, when a Dalai Lama passes away, monks begin the search for the child believed to be his reincarnation. This process is intricate and mystical, involving spiritual signs, dreams, and tests to identify the special child. When the child is found, he often immediately recognizes the Dalai Lama's former belongings and family members, even though he has never met them. This process has been ongoing for centuries, each case bringing further conviction and depth to the Tibetan Buddhist belief in reincarnation. After hearing these strange and spine-chilling stories, what do you think? Are these just coincidences, or is there something beyond the grasp of science? Perhaps we've lived multiple lives without even realizing it, and if that's the case, wouldn't you be curious about your own past lives? We've just explored some remarkable cases of reincarnation with astonishing evidence. But that's not all. Today we'll continue with additional specific cases and the scientific research that has been attempting to explain this phenomenon. Let's dive into practical evidence of reincarnation through notable cases and ongoing scientific studies. First, let's dive into the story of young Ryan Hammonds. Ryan, a boy from Oklahoma, astonished both his family and reincarnation researchers when he began recalling a past life, not as an ordinary person, but as a Hollywood actor. Ryan started experiencing these peculiar memories when he was only 4 years old. He told his mother he had once lived in Hollywood, acted in several films, and had even enjoyed the lavish lifestyle of the celebrity world. At first, Ryan's mother thought he was simply imagining things. However, the details Ryan remembered were too specific and vivid to be just a child's imagination. He described living in a house with a large pool in Beverly Hills and frequently hosting glamorous parties with famous friends. One day, while looking through a book on Hollywood history with his family, he suddenly pointed to a photo of an unknown actor and exclaimed, "Mom, that's me!" Ryan's mother was perplexed, but decided not to ignore this. After thorough research, they discovered that the man in the photo was Marty Martin, a little-known Hollywood actor who had led the life Ryan described, including owning a pool and hosting high-society parties. Marty Martin had passed away in the 1960s, long before Ryan was born. Ryan even recalled specific details of Martin's life, such as luxurious travels, having 2 wives, and a daughter. He also mentioned that he had worked in real estate after quitting acting. All these details matched perfectly with Marty Martin's records when Ryan's family verified them. Ryan's story has led many to question whether his memories could be mere coincidence or are truly convincing evidence of reincarnation. Next, let's explore an emotionally moving story about a woman named Jenny Cockle. Jenny wasn't a child when she started remembering her past life. These memories gradually emerged as she reached adulthood. Jenny Cockle began having vivid dreams about a woman named Mary, who lived in Ireland in the early 20th century. In her dreams, Jenny saw Mary living in an old house, raising children, and enduring a life filled with hardship. She repeatedly saw Mary crying, worried about her children's future, especially knowing her life was nearing its end. These dreams became so intense and detailed that Jenny felt as though she was Mary, enduring her pain and fears. Unable to bear the torment, Jenny decided to search for Mary's family. She began her investigation and found that Mary Sutton had indeed lived in Ireland and had passed away under circumstances identical to those in her dreams. Jenny went on a journey to find Mary's children. After many attempts, she managed to locate them, now elderly. When she met them, Jenny not only recounted the details of Mary's life, but also remembered small memories about each of Mary's children. The strong resemblance in details convinced Mary's children that Jenny was indeed the reincarnation of their late mother. Jenny Cockle later published her story in a book, Across Time and Death, which garnered much attention from researchers and readers. Her story touched many hearts and raised questions about the mysterious connection between the past and present. Beyond personal stories, scientific studies have also delved into the phenomenon of reincarnation. One of the most renowned researchers in this field is Dr. Ian Stevenson and his successor, Dr. Jim Tucker, both from the University of Virginia. Dr. Stevenson spent over 40 years studying reincarnation, collecting thousands of cases of children with memories of past lives. He traveled worldwide, from India and Thailand to the United States, exploring stories like those of Ryan Hammons and Shanti Devi. Stevenson found that many children, particularly in cultures where belief in reincarnation is common, could recall past life details with striking accuracy. What sets Stevenson's research apart is his commitment to scientific rigor. He not only relied on verbal accounts, but also used scientific methods to verify the information. He compared children's memories with historical records, cross-checked evidence with past life family members, and even examined birthmarks or scars on the children's bodies, which he believed could be linked to past life traumas. A famous example includes children in India with birthmarks resembling injuries from previous lives, such as a boy whose birthmark matched a bullet wound suffered by the man he claimed to reincarnate. Aside from children's past life memories, some adults experience fleeting moments of familiarity with events they've never encountered before, a phenomenon known as déjà vu, or the feeling of having already lived through a moment, even if it's the first time. While déjà vu is often dismissed as a psychological phenomenon, some believe it could be a resurfacing of past life memories. Although modern science has yet to fully explain déjà vu, a growing number of researchers are beginning to consider the possibility that déjà vu might be linked to reincarnation. It's a fascinating theory, and perhaps in the future, we'll discover more about the link between déjà vu and past lives. Finally, we can't overlook another significant aspect of reincarnation: near-death experiences, NDEs. There have been countless accounts from people who have come close to death and claim to see visions of their past lives. One of the most famous cases is that of Pam Reynolds, an American woman who underwent a risky brain surgery. During the procedure, while her heart had stopped beating, she experienced a series of visions of another world. At that moment, Pam felt she had lived there before, and she saw people she felt were her past life family. Pam's story is one of many examples of near-death experiences recorded by scientists and doctors. Medical researchers are approaching this field cautiously, as they realize that many individuals who have had near-death experiences recount similar memories of past lives. These stories and scientific studies on reincarnation have opened up a vast realm of contemplation on life, death, and what might lie beyond this world. Do past life memories truly exist, or are they merely the product of imagination? While we still don't have a definitive answer, the evidence and stories have provided us with a fresh and intriguing perspective on reincarnation. We've explored real-life stories of reincarnation, but now let's turn back time and look at ancient tales where the concept of reincarnation has existed for thousands of years. In the scriptures of Buddhism, Hinduism, and other religions, reincarnation is not just a belief, but the core of understanding human existence. Let's delve into ancient reincarnation stories that extend beyond individuals, opening up a vast universe of rebirth and life after death. Reincarnation in Buddhist scriptures. Buddhism is one of the religions deeply rooted in the concept of reincarnation. In Buddhist scriptures, reincarnation is seen as the continuity of life through many existences, and the Buddha himself recounted numerous stories about his past lives, known as the Jataka tales, or previous life stories. One of the most famous Jataka tales is about the Buddha's past life as a hare. In this story, the Buddha sacrificed himself to help a hermit. He leaped into a fire to offer himself as food for the hermit, but the flames did not burn him, as his compassion was greater than the power of the fire. This story highlights that compassion and self-sacrifice are not unique to humans, but are present in all living beings. The Buddha's previous lives were not limited to that of a hare. He also experienced various existences, including lives as a king, hunter, monkey, deer, and even as a deity. Each of these lives brought him valuable lessons, gradually leading him toward enlightenment. In Buddhism, reincarnation is not a punishment or reward, but a path of cultivation, where each being has the opportunity to learn and come closer to liberation. The dialogue between King Milinda and the monk Nagasena. Let's now explore the renowned dialogue between King Milinda and the venerable monk Nagasena in Buddhist scriptures. This dialogue revolves around a fundamental yet highly complex question. If we reincarnate through countless lives, then what is the true self? Are we still the same person after having lived through numerous lives? King Milinda, known for his intellect and curiosity, asked Nagasena, if we change with each lifetime, then what can we call the self? What truly exists through all these transformations? Nagasena responded by using the metaphor of a chariot. He asked King Milinda if the chariot was simply the sum of its individual parts, like the wheels, seat, and axles, or if it was a separate entity on its own. The king answered that the chariot was indeed just a sum of its parts, with nothing called the chariot existing apart from those parts. Nagasena then likened this to human beings, saying that, like the chariot, there is no permanent self or soul that exists independently. We are merely a combination of elements, and when we reincarnate, we transform, but the concept of a fixed, unchanging self is an illusion. This dialogue introduced an essential concept in Buddhism. Reincarnation is not the continuation of a permanent self, but rather the continuation of karma and consciousness. This helps explain why we do not remember our past lives, as the self we believe we have is in reality an illusion. Reincarnation in Hinduism and other religions. Reincarnation is not unique to Buddhism. In Hinduism, the concept of reincarnation, called samsara, or the cycle of birth and rebirth, is equally significant. However, a major difference between Buddhism and Hinduism is that in Hinduism, the soul, or Atman, is considered immortal and eternal. In each life, this soul moves from one body to another, determined by the karma it has accumulated in previous lives. This means that if you do good deeds in this life, you will be reborn into better circumstances in the next life. Conversely, if you live a life filled with sin and selfishness, you may be reborn into a difficult situation or even as an animal. Hinduism also teaches that it is possible to break free from this cycle of rebirth by achieving moksha, total liberation from samsara, when the soul reunites with Brahman, the supreme entity. Beyond Hinduism and Buddhism, several other religions also embrace the belief in reincarnation. In Sikhism and Jainism, reincarnation is a vital part of their philosophy on life and death. These religions believe that the soul is eternal, and reincarnation is the process through which the soul evolves through various lifetimes. The Buddha's teachings on reincarnation. Now, let's delve deeper into the Buddha's teachings on reincarnation. In Buddhism, reincarnation is a part of the cycle of samsara, or the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. All beings are trapped in this cycle because of karma, the actions we perform in this life that determine our next rebirth. Karma can be good, bad, or neutral. Every action, thought, and word creates karma, which propels us into a new life. If we create good karma, we will be reborn in better conditions. Conversely, if we create bad karma, we may face lives filled with suffering. The Buddha taught that samsara is a never-ending cycle of suffering. We are endlessly reborn from one life to the next, experiencing joy and sorrow, pain and pleasure, yet ultimately it is all temporary. To end this cycle, the Buddha pointed out the path to reach nirvana. Nirvana is the ultimate state of liberation from the cycle of rebirth. When one attains nirvana, they are no longer bound by karma and do not have to reincarnate. Nirvana is not a place, but a state of complete freedom from suffering and ignorance. The path to nirvana is the Eightfold Path, a path of practice that includes 8 factors: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. By following the Eightfold Path, one can escape the cycle of rebirth and reach a state of eternal peace. Through the Buddha's teachings and the stories in the scriptures, we see that reincarnation is not merely a belief, but also a way to understand existence and the connection between our present life and past and future lives. The Buddha emphasized that while reincarnation is a reality, the path to liberation from this cycle is through practicing mindfulness and living a life guided by wisdom and compassion. The 6 realms of rebirth. In Buddhism, when discussing reincarnation, we must understand that not everyone is reborn in the same realm. The Buddha taught that there are 6 realms of existence where we may be reborn, each with varying levels of suffering or happiness, depending entirely on one's karma. The first is the Deva realm, heavenly realm. This is where beings with great good karma are reborn. The Devas, or celestial beings, live in happiness and satisfaction, free from suffering as humans experience, and their lives last thousands of years. However, even in the Deva realm, happiness is not eternal. When their karma is exhausted, they must leave and continue the cycle of rebirth. The Asura realm, realm of demigods, is the realm of beings with much good karma but also anger and rivalry. Asuras are often depicted as powerful warriors, living in constant competition and conflict with the Devas. Although they possess many privileges, their envy and hostility prevent them from finding true peace. The human realm is the world we currently inhabit. While it is fraught with suffering and challenges, it is also the only realm where beings have the chance to practice and achieve liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Being born as a human is a great blessing, which is why we should seize this opportunity to do good and cultivate spiritual practice. The hell realm is where those with severe bad karma are reborn. In this realm, beings endure unimaginable suffering and punishment until their bad karma is purged. The hungry ghost realm is inhabited by beings driven by greed, selfishness, and attachment. Hungry ghosts are in a constant state of hunger and thirst, unable to satisfy their needs, and live in perpetual suffering and craving. Finally, the animal realm is where beings live as animals. Animals suffer due to their lack of understanding and insight compared to humans. They live in fear, guided by instinct, and face daily challenges, including the constant threat of being preyed upon and the hardship of survival. The realms of existence in Buddhism. These realms are not fixed. We can be reborn into any of them based on the karma accumulated from our past lives. Every action, thought, and word we create builds karma, not only for this life, but as an accumulation from countless lives. Karma is the determining factor for where we will be reborn. If we live a life filled with positive actions, we might be reborn into the heavenly realms or the human realm. Conversely, accumulating negative karma could lead us into the hell or hungry ghost realms. Consider a specific example of karma in action. Imagine a person who leads a life driven by greed and selfishness, exploiting others at every opportunity. When this person dies, the accumulated negative karma may push them into the realm of hungry ghosts, where they will suffer from eternal thirst and hunger, never finding satisfaction. Conversely, if someone lives compassionately, helping others selflessly, they may be reborn into the human or heavenly realms, where they continue to have opportunities for spiritual growth and enlightenment. This means that while we cannot see the next life, our actions in this one shape our future in various realms. This is why Buddhism emphasizes the importance of ethical living and diligent practice, as it affects not only our current life, but all the lives to come. The stories of the Buddha's past lives, Jataka. When speaking of reincarnation in Buddhist scriptures, we cannot overlook the Buddha's previous lives, documented in the Jataka tales or stories of past lives. Each story in the Jataka not only recounts the Buddha's previous incarnations, but also imparts moral lessons on karma and the patience required on the path to enlightenment. The tale of the elephant and the hunter. One prominent story in the Jataka is the tale of the Buddha as a great elephant in a past life. In that life, he was born as a majestic leader of a herd deep in the jungle. Through compassion and generosity, the elephant would help those lost in the forest by guiding them out of danger. One day, a greedy hunter entered the forest, hoping to kill the elephant for its tusks to sell for profit. The hunter pretended to be lost and begged the elephant for guidance. Though fully aware of the hunter's ill intentions, the elephant, bound by compassion, chose not to retaliate and instead led the man out of the jungle. Upon reaching a secluded spot, the hunter killed the elephant to take its tusks. However, this act of cruelty caused the hunter to be reborn in the hell realm, while the elephant, thanks to its boundless compassion, continued its journey toward enlightenment in future lives. The story of the elephant exemplifies the Buddha's patience and compassion in a past life and serves as a lesson in karma, that negative actions bring inevitable suffering in the future. The story of King Mahajanaka. Another story in the Jataka recounts the Buddha's past life as King Mahajanaka. Mahajanaka was a wise and compassionate king who ruled with kindness and patience. However, throughout his reign, he remained mindful of life's impermanence, constantly seeking a path to liberation. After many years, Mahajanaka chose to renounce his throne, kingdom, and family to become an ascetic in pursuit of enlightenment. He realized that worldly life, no matter how wealthy or powerful, could not bring lasting happiness. This act of renouncing the throne reflected his awakening and detachment from worldly desires, aiming to escape the cycle of rebirth. The story of King Mahajanaka teaches that no matter our social status, recognizing life's impermanence is essential, and seeking liberation from suffering through spiritual practice is crucial. The story of Prince Temia. In another past life, the Buddha was reborn as Prince Temia, a well-known story in the Jataka. From a very early age, Temia realized that being a king entailed taking on the heavy burden of ruling, which often involved ordering punishments and causing harm. In a previous incarnation, he had been a king who accumulated much negative karma from such actions. So, as a child, Prince Temia chose to pretend to be mute and deaf to avoid the responsibility of inheriting his father's throne. He endured 16 years of mistreatment, showing no emotion, speaking no words, and never smiling. Finally, through his patience and resolve, Prince Temia was freed from the royal obligation and left the palace to live as a monk. He spent the rest of his life practicing and teaching the dangers of power and desire. Prince Temia's story emphasizes the importance of patience, renunciation, and determination to avoid actions that generate negative karma. It teaches that while reincarnation and karma are inescapable, we can change our fate through mindful practice and awareness. The story of Prince Vesantara. One of the most touching stories in the Jataka is the tale of Prince Vesantara, another of the Buddha's past lives. Known for his boundless compassion and generosity, Prince Vesantara was willing to give away everything he possessed, even his own family. In the story, Vesantara gave away his divine elephant, a national treasure, to aid a neighboring country suffering from drought. This act enraged his subjects, who demanded his exile. During his time in exile, Vesantara continued giving away whatever he had left, even offering his wife and children to a beggar. His acts of selflessness were not for praise or recognition, but stemmed from profound compassion and detachment. The story of Prince Vesantara teaches that compassion and generosity go beyond merely performing good deeds. They are a means to free oneself from worldly attachments and progress toward enlightenment. The Buddha's past lives as lessons on reincarnation and karma. The stories of the Buddha's past lives in scriptures like the Jataka are not mere fairy tales but carry deep lessons on reincarnation, karma, and the spiritual path to liberation. Through countless incarnations, the Buddha accumulated merit, wisdom, and compassion, drawing ever closer to enlightenment. These stories also serve as a reminder that this life is not an endpoint, but part of an endless cycle, and every action we take today influences our future, not only in this life, but also in the lives yet to come. Finally, after exploring these stories of reincarnation and the Buddha's teachings, we can see that reincarnation is not just a distant belief, but an intrinsic part of the universal law. Each of our actions, words, and thoughts leaves an imprint on the endless chain of cause and effect, guiding us into different realms where we continue our journey through countless lifetimes. The Buddha taught that, while we are caught in this endless cycle of rebirth, there is also a way to break free. This is the path of practice to reach nirvana, a state of complete liberation from suffering and rebirth. It is not an easy journey, but it is the only path to escape the cycle of reincarnation. So, after hearing all of this, what do you think about reincarnation? Could it be true that we have lived through many past lives and will continue to be reborn in the future? Reflect on this and seek further answers through the path of practice and by experiencing your current life with meaning. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and share this video so that we can continue to explore more fascinating topics about life, the universe, and the mysteries beyond. Thank you for watching to the end, and we look forward to seeing you in future videos.